Well, the question of how can we ensure that systems serve community rather than expecting communities to serve the system is a question of power. And it's about the relocation of authority and power. So there are three questions that I think we have to, as a democracy, in whatever country we're in, but given that we're speaking about Manchester and indeed the wider context of the Northwest, and devolution is a hot topic at the moment. I think we need to be speaking seriously about subsidiarity. The idea that no one unit that's larger than a smaller unit is going to take over, is going to dominate, but that we're driving functions and energies into the local context and then empowering and capacitating local people to do the work. So it feels to me like there are things that public sector can do, there are things that third sector can do, and there are things that community can do. And we need to get some clarity around, well, what is it that community does best? What is it that third sector organizations do best? What is it that the public sector does best? And how do we understand the relationship between each of those? And I think in many respects that's about, I suppose, working from grassroots up and from the sidelines in. We cannot answer those questions from the top down. The only thing that you can build top down is a whole. The idea of building bottom up is absolutely central. So I believe that the way that we can ensure that agencies are serving the public, not the other way around, is to build the agency and the voice of citizens where they live. Not as individual campaigners, although that's important, but really at civic level, looking at the ideas of towns and villages, of populations no more than 3,000 to 5,000, being in a position to have the power to plan, but also the power to connect. I think that if we started to actually build the resource at neighbourhood level, and we really had an eye to enabling people at neighbourhood level, in sums of 3,000 to 5,000 people, to start saying, you know, over the next 10 years, this is what we want to see for our town, our estate, our village. There are 100 things that need to happen for this to be a great place to live, an inclusive place to live, an economically viable place to live. And here are the things that we will do ourselves, that we don't actually need any outside help to do. All we really need is for people to remove the barriers of the bureaucracy to citizen-led action. But also for them to say, here are the things that we can do with some help from outside. And finally, for them to say, here are some of the things that we cannot do alone, nor even with some help, that we actually need outside agencies to do. Now, if we had that kind of articulation across the Northwest, where at very, very local level, people were saying, this we will do together, this we need help with, this you must do for us. I think what we would have is we would have a democratic mandate and an endorsement which says, this is how we will actually work. This is how citizens will produce a better tomorrow. This is how we can help them. And this is what agencies must do for them in service. I believe at the moment, in the absence of that kind of participatory model, we have a representative model, which is really, really struggling to hear the 80% of people who are not engaged. And I think we need to get engaged. I love, one of my friends of mine in Australia, Peter Kenyon, says that communities are like football matches, where you've got 22 people who least need the exercise doing all of the hard work, and 3,000 people who most need the exercise telling them what to do. But we're not going to reach those 3,000 by exhorting them to play football. We've got to reach them by finding out what it is they care about enough to contribute and to act upon. And I think that's about getting on street level and actually engaging with people in a different conversation, a conversation about what they want to contribute. We often hear it said that communities are filled with places who are apathetic. They don't vote, they don't contribute, they don't volunteer. Well, I can tell you that everybody is apathetic about something, but nobody is apathetic about everything. So calling people apathetic, I think, is unhelpful. We need to start instead discovering what it is they've got skin in the game around, what it is that makes their eyes dance in their heads. In this country, the public sector has spent 30 years asking people what is the matter with them, and then trying to medicalize them or fix them. The next generation, the next chapter of public life and public service has to be one that asks a different question, that actually says to people what matters to you and how can we support you to do that with your neighbours. If we can achieve that, we will literally create a public sector revolution. But more importantly, we will enlarge civic space and we will actually create a lot more freedom and a lot more vibrancy and a deeper democracy.